Greetings YouTube, this is the Mcusta Nami knife, that's N-A-M-I, straight from Seki, Japan. Mcusta stands for Machine Custom. It's a knife company based in Japan, and normally their quality level is about the same level as your higher end Spyderco production knives. In other words, very good. Unfortunately, this Nami is a fail. All right, let me just show you the knife and the stats before we get into its failness. All right, here you see the clip side of the blade. You can see it is a frame lock, stainless steel handle. All right, and here you see the blade itself, 3.25 inches in blade length. VG10 steel, you see it's a drop point. Thumb studs as your openers. The pivot and the thumb studs are blue anodized. And the entire knife opened, you see the lanyard hole. Beautiful pattern on the metal handle. And altogether, a seemingly beautiful knife. The price on this, around $110. Alright, and here's a close-up. And again, freaking beautiful. I mean, just the handle pattern, I mean, really well done. See open pillar construction. I mean, pretty breathtaking. Alright, and here you see the lockup. It is a solid lockup. There's how they've done the frame lock, the lock bar. Alright, and the blade itself, as I said, made in Seki, Japan. Beautiful blade. Alright, so what's wrong with the blade? It's almost impossible to open using the thumb studs. I mean, let me show you. I don't know if you can see that. Hold on. I don't know if you can see that. That's a blister on my thumb from trying to open this, you know, repeatedly. I mean, it was just incredibly tight. The ergonomics are wrong. The way, it's just not a long enough distance from the pivot to that for it to rotate around. Not to mention the thumb studs are very small, you know, slippery metal. They're too close, so you can't even really get in there. The ergonomics of this, it's almost impossible not to be pressing on the lock bar, no matter which hand you use. Lefty, righty, doesn't matter. Alright, but all those points wouldn't matter if the detent wasn't so freaking strong. The detent is what keeps the blade in, you know, when it's closed. And, I mean, the detent on this, it's like they put a stake right through it. I mean, you know, a detent is supposed to be not too strong but not too weak. It's supposed to be right in the middle. This detent, it was absurd. When I first got this and tried to open it, it was like it was glued shut. I was like, is this a joke? And I even loosened the pivot screw, but I mean, you can only loosen a pivot screw so much before it's falling out. I loosened the pivot screw as much as was feasible, and that helped a tiny little bit, but really still not much. I finally had to basically open it with a spider drop, just dropping the handle down, not even, you know, holding the blade. I mean, the strength of the detent combined with the ergonomics. Oh, and the washers, I don't even know if this has washers. If it does, I mean, they're like microscopic. I mean, basically there's no bearings or anything making the pivot smooth at all. But yeah, how the hell do you make a folding knife that doesn't open? I mean, let me show you something. Here's one of my other Mcustas. Opening on this is beautiful, perfect. Perfect lockup, super smooth opening. Right hand, left hand, doesn't matter. Here's my other Mcusta, the Tactility with Cocobolo handle. And again, opening on this is, I mean, You know, it's got to be in the top 1% of all my folders as far as the smoothness, the ease of opening. Either hand, no problem. Like even with my blister I have on my hand, no problem. All right, so how do you go from two of the best and smoothest opening to some crap that doesn't work? I mean, it's a beautiful freaking knife. I was all ready to give this a very positive review, as I have with my first two Mcustas. But now, unfortunately, I have to say, if you're going with Mcusta, I guess get the liner locks that are awesome rather than the frame lock. Once it's open, is it actually a sharp knife? Yeah, it is. I mean, all these Mcustas, pretty much do come sharp. Now I know somebody is going to say, oh, I have that same model knife and mine works perfectly. Well, good for you, man, but there's such a thing called consistency. Consistency must be strived for in any business. If we go to a steakhouse and your steak is burnt to a crisp and sucks, and then I go up to you and say, well, my steak was really perfectly done, well, that doesn't magically fix your steak. The whole point is the products are supposed to be consistently good. Whether knives, cars, food, firearms, whatever, consistency needs to be assured at the factory. I mean, with a folding knife, you need to have someone at your factory whose job is to do the final inspection. I mean, first of all, a folder has to lock securely. If your folders don't lock up right and you didn't check that, and one of your customers ends up cutting off his finger because it didn't lock right, and you get sued for $1 million, whose fault is that? So, just for basic safety and prudence, any knife company making folders at least needs to check that every folder actually locks open securely, and while you're checking that, it doesn't cost anything extra for the person checking that to just check if the folder can actually be opened reasonably easily. I believe this knife probably was inspected because it's a good company, but it was sold anyway. Why? You know, because it cost them money to make this, and I assume that they figured, well, you know, we have to get some of our investment back, so we're just going to sell them anyway. And I'm sure I'm going to get all the Mr. Fix-It comments. Oh, just take it apart and do this, that, or the other thing. It's not that hard to fix. You know, it's almost like some guys out there want to receive something that's broken or of poor quality just so that they can prove what a great Mr. Fix-It they are. You know, if you have a lot of technical skills, I mean, there's better ways to prove it than purchasing stuff that doesn't work the way it was supposed to work and not being, you know, not being annoyed with that. I mean, it's basically an insult to the customer. A folding knife that doesn't open. All right, so am I going to return it? You know, I got better shit to do, and I mean, you know, it's not like I saved up my whole life to buy it or anything, but I can Spidey drop it open. But you know what? When the best way to open a knife is a Spidey drop, and it's not even a Spyderco, and it doesn't have an opening hole, somebody fucked up.